you will answer those questions directly to, of course, to the audience. They're not to be refuted. Any disturbances from the audience will be taken at zero tolerance, will be asked to leave. And at this point in time, we're going to have them do their 2-minute introduction. We'll go through the 7 questions, and if there's any time at the end, we'll take questions from the audience. We'll start at this end with Mr. Kucinich.
Good evening, everyone. It is terrific to be in this community, which is the most engaged community electorally, civically, in the entire city of Cleveland. And that is so important in this election, where political participation is down, but this community maintains its position as the leader in the votes. But you know what's interesting is that when you go back over the years, City Hall really hasn't respected this community. Now, I live in a neighborhood very much like this on the west side. I've been in the same house, 1,208 square feet, that I bought in 1969 for $22,500. Of course, I mortgaged it a few times and covered some bills, but I'm still there. And I understand the concerns that people have in this community, because just like the neighborhood I live in, you want to make sure the streets are safe. And I know full well, having talked to many of you, not just before this meeting, but being in the neighborhood, about how there are certain gangs running loose, running the streets up and down, ATVs, dirt bikes, threatening motorists, threatening residents. Hey, we've got to have a different approach where the police have to start enforcing the law. The police have to enforce traffic laws. Very important. And we need more police. Now, the police that I want have to be racially sensitive. They have to be constitutionally aware. I'm not for any bullies with badges. We have a transition going on in the way that law enforcement is done, and I want the central organizing principle of this community to be peace. Not law enforcement, peace. Law enforcement supports peace. Restorative justice, giving people a second chance, that supports peace. Health, investments in health and housing. Is that 2 minutes? You know how I feel. I mean, 44 years went by like that, so, you know. Hello.
I failed to mention Ms. Parker has the gavel who will notify you.
I guess that's a hammer.
A hammer, and let you know when your 2 minutes is up. Thank you.
Well, good evening. It is certainly an honor and a delight to be here with you all today. My name is Justin Bibb, and I really got my start right in this community. I was baptized in Reverend Stewart's church right up the street, Zion Chapel Baptist Church. And I spent many of my early adult years in this community, going to Vacation Bible School, serving in the drill team. And I know from my upbringing in this community that this is a bedrock and an anchor in the city of Cleveland. I'm a native son of the southeast side. I grew up on 21st and Dove, and through my parents' example, I learned the importance of hard work and fighting. My dad was actually one of the first black firemen in Cleveland Heights, and he was a cop as well. And he did both jobs for over 30 plus years. And I remember my pops coming home and telling me stories about being called the N-word, them hanging up a noose in the firehouse. But he said, Justin, I don't care, because I gotta fight to make sure that you have a shot at achieving your dreams, and I'm gonna stand up every day and have pride in my job. My mom, who graduated from John Adams High School in 1978, it took her nearly 20 years, there we go Rebels, huh? It took her nearly 20 years to get her associates, her bachelor's, and her master's. Now, when she graduated from John Adams, she could barely read or write. But I saw her have resilience and fight to make sure that as a kid from Dove, I had a shot at life. And because of their sacrifice, I was able to go to American University and work for President Obama when he was in the U.S. Senate. I was able to be one of the youngest executives at Gallup at the age of 21 to lead a global practice advising cities all across this country. And then prior to running for mayor, I left KeyBank as an executive advising a $2 billion business because I felt that this was a time for new ideas and bold leadership to move our city forward. Now, I believe this election is a generational election. We have a short amount of time to get things right in terms of effective law enforcement and police accountability. We also have a short amount of time to get things right in terms of having a modern and responsive and transparent city hall. And we gotta work like hell to make sure that every child inside Cmsd has skills they need to compete. Thank you so much.
2 minutes does go fast, don't it? They had that thing in the debate, you can see it. We need that right now.
Hi all, thank you guys for having me. My name is Ross Debello. I live in West Park with my wife Lauren. I have a dog baby. I have a website, rossdebello.com. So I started out coming to this community for my first boss out of law school. I went to law school at Cleveland State's Law School. I found a job at the law offices of Sandra Williams, if any of you guys remember us from all the Ward 1 ward events. And I helped her campaign. We ran a small law office. We did criminal defense. And then she won judgeship, and she took me with her to the Justice Center. And I worked there for her from 2012 to 2020. And I watched felony court every day, right? And it meant a lot to help get a black woman second only on that felony bench. There's 34 judges. So we got on there. It was heartbreaking. You know, watching felony court day in, day out, sex crime cases, violent crime cases. Oh man, it was really bad. And I watched it 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, from 9 in the morning until 1 p.m. And I thought to myself, how do we change this? How can we change this? Why is America like this? Why is Cleveland like this? Why are we number one in the nation in child poverty, in now poverty in general? And so, taking my judge's lead, right? She got out of bed one day and said, I want to be the second black female on this bench. I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run for mayor, and I'm going to propose a bunch of changes at City Hall. Because we have a City Hall that doesn't listen to us, doesn't prioritize us, doesn't prioritize City Hall, outer neighborhoods in a small business sense. So rossdebello.com is my website. I think we need humongous changes. Thank you.
First and foremost, we thank the Creator for another day of life. We are appreciative that we still have life. And the fact is that so many people who were just here last year are not here as a result of this pandemic. So we are thankful. I'm thankful to the real doctors, like Pastor Phillips and Pastor Quincy. You know, you are the doctors. You are the spiritual doctors. And we thank you for your work. And we thank Councilman Jones, Joe Jones, for the work that he has done here in his community as well. So we want to give him honor. You know, the fact is that we are at a crossroads. We are at a serious crossroads, and the fact is that if we don't change it, the question is, where will we be 10, 20, 50 years from now? You know, we're continuing to build a downtown, but we have forgot about the neighborhoods. We have forgot about Ward 1 and Ward 2 in my own community of Ward 7. I'm not new to activism. I didn't just get here. A graduate of Martin Luther King High School, a graduate of Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and I came back to the community. I came back. You know, Harriet Tubman said that, you know, the definition of success is not getting the freedom, but it's coming back and bringing others with you. So I said, you know what? The great work that we were able to do in City Council, it's time to go after this mayor's position. And as mayor, the first thing that we're going to do is better city services. We got to get right with customer service. You are the true customer, and you are paying for things that you are not getting. And it didn't take me long to understand that. I didn't have to stay here 3 and 4 terms to realize that we're going in the wrong direction. So city services has to get better. We have to have police accountability. Our communities should not be policed, we should be served. There's a difference between the two. Service. And at the same time, the police must have better equipment to be able to do their job. All right, that gavel coming, I heard it. Okay. The last thing is we must make sure that our elders are invested in. It does not make sense for Ward 1 who has invested in his community as taxpayers to not get the resources that you need to fix up your homes. I look forward to telling you more about my plan. Thank you so much.
Please excuse me for not jumping down, but I don't want to fall in these heels, so you help me. Thank you, that's so sweet. See, it pays to be the only woman in the mayor's race, doesn't it? My name is Sandra Williams. I am very honored to be here with you all tonight. I was born and raised in the Buckeye area. My mother and father moved to Cleveland, Ohio from Aliceville, Alabama in hopes of a good job. My father ended up with a job in Chrysler, which helped us take care of our family. I attended the Cleveland Municipal School District. I graduated from John Hay High School. My father died when I was in the 3rd grade from cirrhosis of the liver. He drank too much and that ran in our family. But after my father died, my mother finally was able to make us stable and bought her first home in Buckeye, in the Buckeye area. The one thing she asked of us was that we get a good education, and I did. After graduating from John Hay High School, I went on to join the United States Army Reserve, where I served for 8 years. I then went on to earn a bachelor's degree in political science, a minor in criminal justice from Cleveland State University. I earned a master's degree in criminal justice administration, and then I went back to Cleveland State University and earned an MBA. I tell you all that because I believe that education is very important, and that is why that is one of the pillars of my platform for mayor. I was the sponsor of the Cleveland Plan years ago, which helped us increase our graduation rates from 47% to 80%. And if you're looking at a 5-year graduation rate, it's at 86%. That is not good enough for me, so we know we must do better. Economic development is another pillar of mine that I want to work on, as well as public safety. I worked as a corrections officer downtown at the county jail, a probation officer, a parole officer, and a mediator for the state of Ohio before I worked as a legislative aide for former state representative Annie Key. I served 8 years as a state representative, and now I'm serving my 7th year as a state senator. Cleveland means a lot to me. This is where I was born, this is where I was raised, this is where I will stay. And I want to make sure that each and every Clevelander has an opportunity for a positive, uplifting life in our community. Thank you all so much for having me here tonight. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Sorry I'm a little late. The pastors had another event down in Mount Pleasant, and I was the last candidate that they wanted to talk to. My name is Zack and I'm running for mayor of the city of Cleveland. Many of you know me. I've helped many of you. I graduated from the greatest high school in the history of high schools right down the street, John F. Kennedy High School. I've always been an advocate for this neighborhood, this community, and the people in this ward and this community. I'm no stranger to this neighborhood at all. The bottom line of this whole thing is you might have seen the headlines today on the census. And you see where the city of Cleveland once again dropped below 375,000, which means that now we're going to go from 17 council people down to 15 council people. And I would guarantee you, without even looking at those numbers, that the vast majority of the people neighborhoods that have lost have been the east side of the city of Cleveland, because we haven't invested in the east side of the city of Cleveland. We haven't invested in your neighborhood. Ward 1 is the #1 voting ward in the city of Cleveland on the east side, and yet you wouldn't even know it from the only time they come talk to you is when they need your vote, right? I represented Ward 2 for 17 years. The only time they come and talk to us in Mount Pleasant, because we're the 2nd highest voting ward on the east side of the city of Cleveland, is during election time. You need a mayor that understands the importance of your ward and your community and your neighborhood. You need a mayor just like Mayor White when the Lee Harvard Shopping Center was going in the wrong direction. He stepped in and utilized the power of the mayor's office and got Forest City to come and redo the Lee Harvard Shopping Center that saved this neighborhood. You need a mayor down there that understood when I became a council person, and if I was going to change the face of Mount Pleasant, I had to change the way Kinsman Road looked, and that's the reason Kinsman Road is now a concrete road, built new schools. Who was the one out fighting with you out here in Lee Harvard when they wanted to take away Whitney Young? It was me. Who was here fighting with you when we wanted to build a brand new John F. Kennedy? That was me. Zack.
Okay, we're going to get to the thick of things now. We're going to get to the question part. We're going to start with you, Mr. Kucinich. What are the 3 top priorities if elected to mayor of the city of Cleveland?
Safety, health, housing, and we'll throw in economic development. Number 1, safety. We do not have enough police. Now, I agree with my brother who said that it ought to be about service and not policing. I want to change the central proposition to peace, where law enforcement helps support that, but not having the central proposition being law enforcement. Because if you guide a city philosophically from that place, there's always going to be an element of discrimination. And I'm totally opposed to discrimination of any kind. We need more people in the scientific investigation unit and the homicide unit. I have looked at the city budget. I've gone through it. As a matter of fact, I brought this just in case this question would come up. These are copies of the Certificate of Estimated Resources for the City of Cleveland from 2017 to 2021. And on the certificate, it shows that the city for the last couple of years has had a surplus of about $80 million. Now think about this. People need help with handling security issues in the neighborhood. We need help with housing issues. We need help with health issues. And the city has been sitting on money and hoarding it. Why is that? People say we have a rainy day fund of over $40 million. What's raining bullets in some neighborhoods? What are we doing? Really? What are we doing? So I want to see the resource of the city put to work, making our neighborhoods safer, more peaceful, and prosperity. We need to leverage some of this $511 million that's coming in for economic development. It's absolutely clear that communities like Lee Harvard and Shaker Square, they're lacking in investment for a long time. You go around the city and you look at Tremont, Detroit Shoreway, Ohio City, a lot of money has gone into those communities. I'm glad for that, but why do you have to focus on some and not others? There's enough money to go around, and money's going to be brought here when I'm elected. Thank you.
So my 3 priorities are: number 1, public safety, police accountability. Number 2, making sure we do the hard work of transforming Cleveland Public Schools for our children for the 21st century. And then thirdly, ensuring we have a modern response to City Hall. Let me talk about the first priority. I believe we can have smart, data-driven, and thoughtful law enforcement to decrease crime, but also do the hard work of really thinking what policing should look like and get real and serious about police accountability. My dad was a cop. I get both sides of this equation, right? You can do both. In the short term, here's what I want to do. Right now, we have more police per resident than Columbus, Indianapolis, Toledo, and Cincinnati. Did you know that? Probably didn't know that. But only 51% of our cops are walking the beat. The other 49% are in desk jobs. That allocation makes no damn sense to me. It should be 70% walking the beat with the real community presence and 30% in the important desk jobs. That's critical. The other thing I want to say, and I hope many of my other competitors in this race would join Ross and I and support the Safer Cleveland Ballot Initiative. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Birkenstaff who's in the room this evening. This ballot initiative is critical to restoring the culture of trust and accountability in our police department. We spent nearly $30 million over the last 10 years selling police misconduct claims. Enough is enough. Secondly, education. You know, nearly a third of our kids didn't log online last year. We lost nearly 10,000 of our children to other schools across this community due to COVID-19. So we need to have a better strategy to address that learning loss, to close the achievement gap. I want to prioritize hiring more teachers of color. That's critical. I also want to do what Bruce Walker's doing at John F. Kennedy High School. He's got a machinist program for high school students at JFK to get them good paying jobs at Lincoln Electric, GM, etc. It's time to bring back the trade program so our children have a shot at life and have a straight to work pathway when they graduate from a Cleveland Public High School. And thirdly, we gotta have a modern response to City Hall. I talk to too many seniors who can't get their grass cut because you gotta call 5 departments for someone to cut your grass. It's 2021, right? So all these issues are getting back to the basics, and that's my vision as the next mayor. Thank you so much.
My 3 priorities would be bringing down crime more naturally, not via more police nor more police on the street. Matter of fact, I think getting to police accountability means bringing down crime, right? Bringing down violent incidents. So bringing down crime, because that's just lose, right? Whether you're a victim, whether you're a family member of somebody who did something wrong, right? Again, I watched these cases for 8 years. So bringing down crime, bringing down infant mortality, and bringing down children who are poisoned with lead paint. So I think if you're running for mayor of the city of Cleveland, you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror. And it's all about health and safety, right? And you do those 3 things, right? A natural decrease in crime, having women make more money, so they're, especially minority women, so they're less likely to have to deal with an infant mortality, right? And same thing with affordable housing, new housing in these neighborhoods. We're going to do public housing. We built more houses in the 1940s than we've done since the year 1980. So they're going to be new houses. We're going to abate all our properties that are poisoned, right? This is lifelong brain damage for our children. So we have to fix our economy. We have to put our money into the outer neighborhoods from Lee Harvard to West Park. Take the focus off, right? Look at the 15-year tax abatement. That's not spurring development. I think we need to get rid of that. And we need to spur development in the outer neighborhoods so that, again, kids stay on the right track. It's constant growth and meaning in your life. We're going to end the school to prison pipeline, and you do that by having a child get through their first year, not be lead poisoned, and have a job. And that's it. Crime will go down. But no more police. No more police.
Thank you so much. Thank you. The first thing, because I've heard this a lot, and I just want to make sure that we address this. When you talk about the rainy day fund, as the congressman brought up, to you and I, $40 million sounds like a whole lot of money. But to run the city, it's not a lot of money at all. You gotta have some resources set aside just in case, for example, a pandemic stuff jumps off. And this is what we found out. We found out that in regards to the city, we didn't have enough resources. Now, we just received $511 million. So the first 3 things we need to do, number 1, is make sure that city services is on point. Right? You gotta call city services. And if your grass is not being cut, there's only 2 people you need to call, your councilman and the department agent. That are the people that make sure that your grass are cut. If they're not doing it, that's a serious issue. So you want to deal with city services. Using technology. If I can go and get into a car accident and take a picture and get a claim fixed, right, then I should be able to do the same thing when there's a pothole, when there's a tree branch that falls. I should be able to do the same thing with any city services, right? So we want to use technology. We have to bring ourselves to the 21st century. The second thing we want to deal with, without a doubt, is safety. We spend $335 million from the general budget on safety, but yet and still, we are still one of the worst and most dangerous cities in the entire nation. So we're finding that money is not sufficient when dealing with safety. There must be community policing. The police must understand the community. They should know who the pastors are. They should know who Mama Catherine on that block. They should be connected with the community, all right? This is very, very important. And on the other side of that, we want to put resources in making sure that safety has the equipment to do their jobs. You have police officers that are driving cars 300,000 miles on the car. All right? You have, when you call 911, the fire department show up, EMS shows up, everybody and their mama show up. So what we have to do is combine fire and EMS so that we save money as well as we save lives. And the last thing, we must invest in neighborhoods. Particularly, we talked about how Ward 1 is the first black suburb. The first black suburb. More homeowners are in Ward 1 amongst our community than anywhere else. We need to take some of this funding and put it into fixing our seniors' homes. Fix our seniors' homes. You have seniors who are living in homes where their roofs are falling and back porches are falling. We can't allow that. Thank you.
All right. So listen, I have a lot of priorities, but my top 3 priorities, again, is education. As I said, I sponsored the Cleveland plan. That was years ago when Governor Kasich was going to take over the Cleveland schools. Our graduation rate then was at 47% here in the city of Cleveland, and we got that graduation up, but that's not good enough. So there are 3 things I want to do with education. I want to focus on students from age 0 to 3. As you might know, we have something called the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. And before a child gets into kindergarten, they have to take a test. Many of the students in Cleveland are not passing that test, which means that they're already labeled before they get into kindergarten. So focus on students age 0 to 3. Then making sure that we have a very targeted reading program, because we also have the 3rd grade reading guarantee. Years ago, 18% of our students were being held behind because they could not pass the 3rd grade reading guarantee. It's still at 8%, and that's not good enough. We need to make sure our children are reading at that 3rd grade level, because that test is directly linked to the 12th grade graduation rate, and there's research for that. I want to expand the Closing the Achievement Gap program that Senator Prentice and the legislature started years ago. And that's when we focus and wrap our hands around at-risk youth who are in lieu of not graduating from high school. They have a mentor, they have a person that works with the family, they help them with their homework. We have all types of programs to make sure that those students are graduating from high school. It worked when we did it before. We now have a little bit of that program. It's not focused a lot on young girls, it's mostly men, but we're going to make sure that everybody, women and men who are at risk, are in that program. And finally, there's a program called CareerWise in the state of Colorado. I want to make sure that when a child graduates from the Cleveland Municipal School District, that they are ready to go to work in a job that will pay them a living wage on day 1. So we will start training people in the 10th grade, in the 11th and the 12th grade. They will go to school and they will go to work and get paid. When they graduate, they will graduate with an in-demand certificate that is recognized across the United States of America. I'm not only talking about welding and electrical, I'm talking about IT, high-tech manufacturing. If they want to go into law enforcement, that's fine too. But we're talking about real jobs that they can make a living off of, and that will help keep people off the streets. And I'll get into my other priorities later. Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, you need a mayor that understands and knows your community. So first of all, it's got to be about public safety. You know and I know, about another half an hour, you know who's going to be riding the streets besides us? The dirt bike boys. Because you know, like I know, every 7:15, 7:30, they roam up and down Harbor Road, right? Right? So you need a mayor that doesn't need you GPS to come to your neighborhood. So first of all, it's about public safety. Second of all, it's about doing something about the poverty. And then third of all, it's about city services. I mean, right down the street. Literally, right down the street, because I didn't need GPS to get here. Because I live right down the street on 149th and Barlett. And I was coming up, and I said, well, I'm going to make a left turn right here at Eldermere. And you know what's right there in the middle of the street? Huge tree. That tree been there, because I done been up in this neighborhood all day. That tree been there all day, people. All day that tree been there. Now you know and I know, if that tree was downtown in another neighborhood, that tree would have been gone by now, people. That's city services. You pay too much taxes. You give them too much down in City Hall to have the city services you have. Look at your streets, people. Look at your streets. They paid every street downtown for the RNC, and yet you still have streets like Biltmore that need to be paid. You still got streets like Lee Road that needs to be done something about. Your streets. Now when they brought these RNC people here from all around the country, they paved every street downtown, but you can't get your street paved right here in Lee Harbor. So you need a mayor that knows your neighborhood, that understands your neighborhood, that grew up in this neighborhood, that's going to take care of you in this neighborhood. That's me. That's me. I'm a Southeast Side a boy. You reared me. You put me in the position I'm in today, and I want to give back to you. I'm asking you to vote for me as mayor of the city of Cleveland, so you could have a mayor that understands the importance of Lee Harbor neighborhood, that understands Mount Pleasant, and it's going to give all these millions of dollars that they spending around the city and other neighborhoods. I want to spend those millions of dollars in your neighborhood, and in your neighborhood, and right in your neighborhood. I want to spend them right here. You want to have a councilman that understands your neighborhood. And I'm a mayor. I said councilman because I was a councilman for 17 years. You want a mayor that understands your neighborhood. I understand you, and I understand your neighborhood.
Sir, you've already touched base on public education. Cmsd schools need to be able to graduate our children, not only educationally, but mentally. What is your plan to increase graduation rate, and how would you improve the school rating for Cmsd schools?
Well, I think it just comes down to diversifying the way we educate here. The fact that we only got one vocational school in the entire city of Cleveland, so if your children want to learn vocation, they got to go all the way to Max A's on the west side of the city of Cleveland. You know, I graduated, like I said, from John F. Kennedy, and y'all know Mr. Austin. Y'all remember Mr. Austin, the automotive guy? He taught me how to change my oil. So I didn't have to go to Firestone and Goodyear to learn how to change my oil, because I learned how to change my oil when I was in the 10th grade right down the street. See, we got to diversify this education. So when you look at the aspect that when I grew up on 139th and Kinsman, raised by a single mom, and I had the chance to come to JFK, but two of my other friends, Sean Woodall and Dwayne Ezel, they wanted to go to Aviation High School. So they got on a bus to go down to Aviation High School downtown. When they graduated, they joined the Air Force, because they had those opportunities, people. If you want to build the graduation and grow the graduation rate, you got to expand the opportunities for these young people in these communities. I knew when I graduated from John F. Kennedy, I knew that I was ready for the real world. So whether it was Mr. Austin, whether it was Mr. Peabody, these people, Mr. Gambrill that taught me right up the street up there, I knew that I was ready for the real world, people. We're not educating these people to be ready for the real world. But as mayor of the city of Cleveland, because I graduated from the Cleveland public school system, I know the importance of education. I know the importance of here in Lee Harbor when it comes to education, because one of the reasons that we keep being successful with the levy is because of you. You keep raising your property tax here in Lee Harbor for a better education, and are you getting a better education? I don't think so, people. You need a mayor that understands. I'm not just coming to you, to Lee Harbor, to give me the vote during the levy. I'm going to come to you to ask you how we can do better. When the fact that they was even thinking about closing down Whitney Young, who was fighting with you when they was talking about closing down Whitney Young? It was me. I know you. You know me. Put somebody down there that understands you. And that's me, Zack.
So I've already touched base on my education plan, so sorry for jumping the gun on that one. But beyond what I just said, the fact of the matter is we have to have teachers in our school system that actually care about the students in the school system. And many times I've been into the Cleveland Municipal School District, and teachers would have their feet sitting up on a desk. My sister is a teacher in the Cleveland Municipal School District, and some of her colleagues would say, I'm not doing a lesson plan because these kids can't learn. Why would I waste my time doing a case plan for them? So we have to make sure we have the right teachers in the right place that are going to make sure do everything they can do to make sure our children learn. Right now, we were teaching to the test. You know, the standardized test that the state legislature made every student take. And many of our students weren't graduating because they couldn't pass that test. But oh, what happened? The outer ring suburban people, the very wealthy districts like Solon and Orange, their students start failing. Their students couldn't pass the test either. So earlier this year, we got rid of the test. Why? Because the rich people couldn't do it. But we have to make sure that our kids are getting a sound foundation in the Cleveland Municipal School District and ready for work on day one. We also need to make sure we're taking advantage of the Say Yes program. Free college tuition for every student in the Cleveland schools, yet we are not using that money. The money is going, it's just sitting there. Can't understand it for the life of me. The other part about that is this. We have a program that's paid for by the state legislature which will allow students to start going to college or career tech school in the 6th grade. No payment from the parent. You can just go to school. Some students with other districts are actually getting an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree before they graduate from high school. Our students aren't using that. We need to make sure that we are preparing our students for the future in whatever career they want to go into. There are a lot of jobs out here, and I would love to talk to you more about my economic development plan and how we can make sure we have jobs in our community instead of going all the way up to Solon and Twinsburg and all those other places just so you can have a manufacturing job. So that's my plan for education. It has worked in other communities, and it can work here. Thank you.
Councilman, hold on. Can I remind everybody in the audience, please, to silence their phones, to give these candidates an opportunity to get their message across? Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, much like Zack, I actually used to teach at JFK. I used to have a leadership program that I taught there back when Miss Miller was the principal. If you remember Miss Miller, who's now principal over at Common High School. You know, when you talk about young people, if you look at the what, you're going to think that they're a bunch of animals. You're going to think that every single dirt biker is a terrorist, as I heard some people call them. But these young people have stories. They come from families. They are our children. They are our babies. And we have to stop putting each other against one another and we start working together. So when you look at the school district, I've been in the school district. I don't know how many of my competitors have graduated from Cmsd. I graduated from Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I went to Case Elementary. I went to MLK Middle School. I went to MLK High School. Then I went to Morehouse College, and I came right back to my neighborhood. I didn't take a break when it came to service. I created something called the Be the Change Leadership Series, and I would teach all across the city. I would speak at graduations. I would show up to these young people when they had funerals, so that when I go and speak to these young people on Harvard and Lee, or Buckeye, or Kinsman, or down the way, or up the way, they respect me because I'm not just criticizing them. You can't just check them without checking on them. You have to do both. And if we are going to uplift our city, we have to work with our young people. They are our future. So when I see my elders, or I'm with my young people, I see my elders, I always call my elders auntie, uncle. I want my young people, when they see you, they see your family. And when you see them, I want you to see your nephew, your son, your daughter. We have to build that bridge. So how do we have a stronger school district? First of all, we have to work with the Cleveland Teachers Union. Because what the senator just said is very important. You have teachers who are in classrooms who are not educating our children, and they have contracts that allow them to stay there. That's right. Because of seniority or whatever the case may be. You have a teacher there who may come from a different country and can't speak the language of the students there, so the students is not paying attention. But when I walk into a classroom and I speak to the young people and they understand the language that I'm trying to get across, they listen. Our young people want to listen, but we have to be willing to speak to them and speak to them with love. And speak to them with love. So in order for us to have strong school districts, we must first, as a city, we must put our full backing behind the school district. I've been fighting as a councilman for years for us to create an educational committee. Councilman Zack will tell you, we have Development and Sustainability Committee, we have Building and Housing, we don't have an educational committee. How can we grow as a city if our school district is failing? We will never grow until we have a stronger school district. Thank you.
Eric, can you repeat the exact wording of the question for me?
Public schools need the ability to graduate our children, not only educationally but mentally. What is your plan to help increase graduation rate, and how would you improve the school rating?
Yeah, I think the mental part of this is everything. And from the mayor's perspective, if I'm elected mayor, the first thing we're doing is going to fight for funding and stop the flood of funding out of public schools, right? Because now we've got a third type of school, and you know, it's just not fair to our kids, and we got to educate 100% of our children. And when I think about education, I think about creating independent thinking, complex thought, mindfulness. And therefore, we need that funding for year-round, in-school, and after-school programs, right? We're talking about art, we're talking about music, we're talking about sports, we're talking about these things that allow children to open up their own minds. The other thing is diversity, right? In this time and in this place, diversity is education. We're too slow on this truck down towards the melting pot, right? We've seen too many problems recently. So diversifying all schools, you know what I mean? Teachers, kids need to have a flavor for what Cleveland is. And the last thing is the Wi-Fi divide, right? So again, we're trying to create mindfulness and independent thinking. And you do that by giving all kids on every street, right? There's like 2,200 streets in Cleveland, access to Wi-Fi, the equipment to get on the internet, teach themselves, or even their older brother, right? It doesn't have to be a high schooler or a middle schooler. And we need training and troubleshooting on every block. So it's got to be a multifaceted, year-long, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. approach. And we have to put our children in a position to succeed. And we haven't been doing that for, I think, many decades.
You know, I think it's important to note that the fact that we have mayoral control of our schools is a special moral responsibility for whoever the mayor is. And that mayor must have an active, hands-on role on what's happening inside CMSD. I also want to make sure I applaud the leadership of Senator Williams. The Cleveland plan was a good step in the right direction for our children. However, the fact that over the last 10 years, though, we've only gone from an F to a D, that ain't good enough for me, right? And so we got to accelerate the pace of change that we see right now inside of CMSD. So I think there are a couple of things we can do. Number one, high school graduation is great, right? It's a good metric, but it's not the only metric. Did you know less than 10% of our children inside CMSD graduate with a 15 or above on the ACT, right? So what does that tell you? That tells you that our kids don't have the college or career readiness skills to actually graduate if they get a scholarship and go to Ohio State or OU. So they go to these schools and come back with $50,000 of debt, and they can't get a job. And so we need a different measure of how we measure college and career readiness to make sure that every kid has the skills they need to live a life with dignity. That's critical. The other thing we got to do, we got to do a better job of investing in teacher quality and teacher effectiveness. Every study will tell you that the makeup of that teacher and the quality of the curriculum are the two biggest things you can control to close the achievement gap. For me, that means hiring more teachers of color that look like our children and that share their lived experience, and making sure our curriculum is not just geared towards the test, but geared towards what their strengths are and their passions are as kids. So we spent all this money and say, yes, that's great, but we need the same level of investment for apprenticeships and trades programs. I believe we should start talking to our children in 7th grade and 8th grade about what kind of career they want. And by the time they're a junior or a senior, we should guarantee every kid a year-round apprenticeship or an internship, making at least $15 an hour. So there's a direct pathway to a middle-class job when they leave Cmsd. Lastly, I want to say this. When I was growing up, when them street lights came on, I had to be in the house, or else I was going to get my butt whooped, right? I was either in vacation Bible school, in the Boys and Girls Club, singing in the choir. I was doing something. So we got to meet the whole needs of our children. That means more investments in high-quality out-of-school time programs in every neighborhood, Boys and Girls Clubs, etc. We need that wraparound approach to meet every needs of our children. Thank you.
Schools do not occur. Sit down. Sit down. Testing, good. Thank you. Schools do not exist in a vacuum. Half of the children in the city of Cleveland are living at or below the poverty level. 20% of the people in Cleveland are existing on $10,000 or less a year. When you think about the level of poverty, schools can't, in and of themselves, solve all these problems. We have to simultaneously address safety in the community, the health of the children, the housing that the children live in, children's access to food. I mean, I've heard stories about children who ask for an extra sandwich, they could take one home to give it to their little brother. We have to address the whole child. Now, I know a little bit about this because I grew up in the city of Cleveland, the oldest of 7. My parents never owned a home, and we were renters. By the time I was 17, we lived in 21 different places, including a couple cars. We couldn't afford to live out in this neighborhood. But we lived down on Harvard Avenue, and I was able to hitchhike up Harvard, so I'm familiar. I didn't need a GPS, by the way. I was able to hitchhike up Harvard, go work at a golf course, okay? So I just want to say that we have to address the individual child. We need more mentors, we need tutors, we need those who will help children gain remedial assistance on their subject. We need to get back to basics. Our children, when they graduate, they have to be able to read, they need to be able to write, and they need to be able to do basic math. And those skills are translatable all over the world, but if you don't have that, you can't take the next step. And I agree with Sandra Williams. You know, we need to be in a position to help these children advance beyond high school, but we have to look at the children as individuals. I think every one of us knows, if we hadn't had some teacher somewhere in our lives who paid attention to us as individuals, we wouldn't be here today. Am I right? I mean, every one of us has had that. Imagine that every child has that experience to be able to unfold to their highest potential. And that's what I'm about. I'm about human potential, the individual, the power of one child. If we could transform one life, we save the whole community. Thank you.
Running through downtown Cleveland, Ohio City, and parts of the west side, we notice new development except for the east side. We need to see equal development like our neighboring counterparts. What is your plan to help increase new development on the east side of Cleveland?
You're absolutely right. I mean, I started when I began my presentation this evening. I talked about what I've seen and being around the city. The Harvard area, Shaker Square, it's been ignored for decades. Councilman Reed was right. You're paying high levels of taxes here, both income and property taxes. You have a right to expect something in return, and you're not getting it. It's city services, but it's also basic investment. That $511 million we're talking about, we need tens of millions to come into this neighborhood and also Shaker. There's just no question about it. I saw a newspaper story a couple weeks ago where people are trying to negotiate a $20 million investment in Shaker Square. Well, that's a minimum. That used to be the garden spot of Cleveland, as was this area. I remember going back to the days of Ruby McCullough and all the work that she and her husband did in this community. You know, I realized how to put the resources where they're needed the most and how to leverage them. Because it's not just about putting a pure chunk of money. You want the banking community, you want the various foundations, you want a sense of community and say, we want to leverage 10 and turn it into 50. We want to see all the small businesses given a chance for a comeback. Because when the small business districts go, so too go the neighborhoods behind them. We need to make sure that we support our small businesses. We need to make sure that people will buy locally. And so these are things that I believe not only strongly in, but I will see, as mayor, a new structure for investment in the neighborhoods. And remember, city councilman, clerk of courts, mayor, state senator, U.S. congressman, presidential candidate. I've been all over this country. I know how good Cleveland can be. And I am going to do everything I can with all the knowledge I have, and maybe with the help of some of the people here, to help make it the best it can be. Thank you.
You know, when my grandma came up here from the segregated South, Mount Pleasant and Union Mounds was a beacon of the black middle class. But what we've seen since 2008 is that her community and this community, their housing values have not recovered since the Great Recession of 2008. And my campaign staffer, Kent, he lives in Mill Creek, the same thing. He's underwater in his mortgage right now. What's the reason for that? There are a couple of things. Number one, structurally as a city, we tend to have a one-size-fits-all approach to economic development, right? Abatements, abatements, abatements. Now it's working on the west side, right? But what we're seeing on the west side is those folks are getting displaced and priced out. On the east side, we don't have any targeted investment in the southeast side specifically. So here's what I want to do as mayor. Number one, I want to restructure and retool this abatement policy to make sure we can drive some real targeted investment in this community. That's first and foremost. Secondly, we got to stop having a one-size-fits-all approach to economic development in our city. And as we know, your main streets determine your side streets. Councilman Joe Jones told me in this neighborhood, there's not one sit-down restaurant. That's a shame, right? And so as we think about this money we're getting from President Biden, as many folks have said, we got to leverage that capital. As someone who understands how markets work, we should be leveraging that capital to raise another $2 billion, $3 billion so we can have the same level of investment that we had downtown, the west side, right in this community. The other thing we got to do is, I want to see a chamber of commerce for east side businesses so we can organize our purchasing power and bring real community wealth in this neighborhood. That is essential, but it's going to take an economic and community development strategy and a mayor at City Hall that understands how do we give you all in this room the tools to buy back the block, to keep the wealth in this neighborhood. That is essential. And the next mayor must use the bully pulpit at that office to do that, and that's how I intend to lead as your next mayor.
So, you know, I got in this from a citizen, a homeowner, a voter perspective. And my take on the 15-year tax abatement is that our taxes are going up to subsidize the fact that you can turn a $9 million project into a $12 million project in only a couple parts of town. So I will start by scrapping the 15-year tax abatement. Beyond that, one thing that I've been proposing is a public bank, right? Because what we know about the history of America and back from the 1930s, right? Redlining, segregated communities, concentrated poverty. One thing we know is that that was done by politicians, right? In favor of banks, in favor of property insurance companies, real estate agencies. So we've gone down this road financially and disinvestment-wise in many of the neighborhoods in Cleveland, not just Ward 1. A public bank using a nest egg, right, from the ARPA funds can help low-income individuals be guaranteed non-predatory lending. And what the profits of the bank could do, right, first of all, it'll be a safety net even for the banks, right? In North Dakota, they have one. In 2008, they were okay, right? But we weren't. We didn't have that safety net. So we got to get people affordable, non-predatory lending, their mortgages and their small businesses in every part of town. You need that guarantee because we haven't been able to trust these institutions. And everywhere you look is the result of what politicians have done and for-profit industries, right? So getting rid of the 15-year tax abatement and starting a public bank would be my answers.
Thank you so much. One of my favorite restaurants, actually, man, is Harvard Wine and Grill, man. My good friend Claude owns that. It's right down Harvard. Has some of the best tilapia in the city. You got to sit down and check it out. You listen, man. As we look at this, people are talking. But I really want us to really get into the history of how we got where we are. Redlining is not a new issue. Redlining has been happening in our community for a long time. And for some of my competitors who speak about this as if it's a new thing, it's really a slap in the face. Because you could have been handled it. You could have been spoke up about it. You could have been done something about it. I think that one of the greatest mayors that we've had is Carl Stokes. Carl Stokes just got finished reading this beautiful book called The Promise of Power. The Promise of Power. And he talks about how when the banks did not invest in certain neighborhoods, he said to them, we will disinvest from you. We're going to take our monies out of your banks. I mean, in our neighborhoods, you can't even get a secure credit card, let alone some funding to help fix up your home. So now guess what? Because of redlining that's been around for a long time, that some of the people on this stage could have been did something about, and Ben could have said something about, because of the redlining, what ends up happening? Now, that beautiful asset that you bought is now a liability. Now, because it's a liability, you can't get money from the bank. They won't give you any money. And the city has set up these standards of AMI, which is area medium income. And they say, you're too rich to get money from the city, but you're too poor to fix it. So now this house that you have, falling apart, the bank won't give you any money for it. So now what happens? You leave the house, maybe you go into assisted living. You can't pass the house down to your son or your daughter because they don't want the house, because it's more of a liability than an asset. Then what happens? The land bank comes, the bank comes, some investor from China somewhere comes, and now they buy the house and the land for pennies on a dollar. Don't you see how the government has played a part in methodically pushing you out of your neighborhood? So when people talk about this, they were a part of it. They didn't do anything about it. We should have been sent to the banks. And as mayor, the first thing I'm going to do is that $514 million will not go through any banks unless the banks use their Community Reinvestment Act dollars and they add to that $500 million and turn it into $5 billion and begin to invest in the first place, which is here in Ward 1. Thank you. And Ward 2.
Okay, so since I've been on the campaign trail talking about building up the city of Cleveland, one of the things that I learned is that City Hall does not work directly with the community development corporations on a regular basis to help them do what they do. City Hall takes care of really big projects, these multi-million-dollar projects, but it's the CDCs that help take care of the community. So I want a better relationship with the community development corporations, and we have to make sure we have great community development corporations. So number one. Number two, we need to white box these storefronts that we have in our community so that when a business is ready to move into our city, into our communities, they're ready to go. They don't have to come in and do the construction work themselves. It's already white boxed and they're ready to go. And we can attract businesses into our community. Number three, as my colleague just said here, we put a lot of money in banks in the city of Cleveland. They don't give us anything back. So what I would like to do is leverage all of the millions of dollars that we put into banks in our community to help small businesses grow. If you want our money, then you're going to have to give money back to small businesses, whether they have poor credit or not. We need to leverage the dollars that we have. We also need to make sure we have a venture capital fund for people. When you have a business, and in order to grow that business, you're going to need some seed money. And that venture capital fund, like we have on the state level, will help small businesses get that push that they need to go to the next level. Another thing that's a huge problem in the city of Cleveland is minority businesses getting contracts with the city of Cleveland and the state of Ohio. We should not have to be front companies for people. We know how to do business and we should be at the table. So minority businesses will be getting contracts. No more front companies in the city. I just brought back $150 million from the state budget on June 30th to tear down abandoned homes. We have over 4,000 abandoned homes in the city of Cleveland. Cleveland can use that money right now to tear down those homes. That's what we need to do, because when I'm walking through this community, people say, if you can tear down that home next door to me, I'll vote for you. Our standards are so low. If that's all we want is a home torn down, then I guess we can all get elected. So tearing down those homes. But also those homes that we can save, we need to make sure we save and rehab those homes. I also brought back $350 million for those vacant and contaminated old manufacturing plants that we have all over our community. $350 million. That's a public safety hazard. That's a health hazard. We can get those things cleaned up, do phase 1, phase 2, and we go out and attract those companies into our communities. And the last thing I will say is this. There are seniors in our communities who make $1 or $2 too much to qualify for the Senior Homeowner Assistance Program. Nobody should be sitting in their home with the roof open and a porch about to fall in. So I'm going to make sure that we have a grant program for those seniors who need assistance. And when they sell their home, then we can get our money back. Thank you.
Can you read the question again? It's been a little long.
Well, I'm going to read the question again, but yeah, if we can be respectful of Ms. Parker, we have a lot of more time than 2 minutes because we only have 6 candidates. So if we can sort of adhere to, when you hear the gavel, let's be respectful.
Yes, that was just it's okay, but you made a great point.
Okay. Riding through downtown Cleveland, the city and parts of the west side, we notice new development except for the east side. We need to see equal development like neighborhoods and our neighboring counterparts. What is your plan to help increase development on the east side of Cleveland?
All right, so if you want to get this done, you got to put someone in City Hall who has the experience to get it done. So you look at the fact that I spent 11 years working for the governor of the state of Ohio, 17 years as a Cleveland City Council person, 4 years working as the Intergovernmental Affairs Officer for the San Francisco Housing Authority, and I just finished 3 years with the Ohio Secretary of State as the Minority Affairs Coordinator, traveling the state of Ohio to create jobs for minorities and the whole lights. You understand there's 34 neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland, okay? So what you got to do is you got to have a mayor. You got to put a mayor down there that understands, first of all, that 34 neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland. And all 34 of those neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland need investments. So look at my track record. When I became a councilman in 2001, I went to Mayor Michael White and said, if I'm going to change the face of Mount Pleasant, I've got to do something to Kinsman Road. So what did the mayor do? He gave us $11.5 million to redo Kinsman Road. Now that year, there were only $21 million for the city of Cleveland to do every road in the city of Cleveland, but he understood that if that council person said, if you gave him the money to redo Kinsman Road, we could change the face of Mount Pleasant. It was the largest, most expensive road project in the history of the city of Cleveland until Euclid Corridor. But Mayor White understood that I had a vision for Mount Pleasant because I grew up in Mount Pleasant. So what happened after we did Kinsman Road? We built the third school in the entire city of Cleveland, A.J. Rickoff. After we finished doing A.J. Rickoff, what did we do? We then built the office building, the county office building on 139th. After we did the office building on 139th, we built the senior building on 138th. So we took an $11 million project and leveraged it into over a $50 million project. Because you had a mayor down there that understood that if we didn't do these things, Mount Pleasant would fall apart. So the same thing happened here when Mayor White gave us the money and worked with Sam Miller and Forest City to redo the Lee Hubbard Shopping Center. You all know what Kinsman used to look like when we had the reservoir right there, where Aldi's is right there, and CVS right there. See, that's a mayor who understands investing in the neighborhoods. You understand what Mill Creek is right now. You know what that used to be. That used to be a psychiatric hospital. But it took a mayor like Mayor White to say, let's tear it down and let's build house. See, that's what a mayor does. That's the importance of the mayor. That's the experience that I have. I'm going down to City Hall with this experience to rebuild these neighborhoods. So when you talk about what we're going to do on the east side of the city of Cleveland, we're going to make sure that you know what Mayor White told me? He said, Councilman, I can go to any ward in the city of Cleveland, any neighborhood in the city of Cleveland, because I've got something going on in every neighborhood in the city of Cleveland. You can't say that today, because you don't have a mayor down there that understands the importance of neighborhoods. This election is about neighborhoods, people, and the investment in the neighborhoods. You got a councilman for 17 years who invested in the Mount Pleasant, who changed the face of Mount Pleasant. Look what Lucas Park used to be until I became a councilman in that park. Now look at it today, the largest urban park in the state of Ohio. Why? Because I invested in the Luke Easter Park. That didn't just happen. I'm going to invest in your wards. I'm going to invest in your communities. I'm going to invest in your neighborhoods. I'm going to use the experience that I have to change the face of this city. But I need your vote, people. I need you to go to the polls on election day and vote for experience.
Okay, this is a long question that basically has three parts to it, but it all deals with lead. And we have the opportunity to have our housing court judge here with Judge Scott.
And that's my cousin too, y'all, right there.
Cleveland has a history of mismanagement of lead hazards that poison Cleveland's children. How do you plan when dealing with the lead problem in the city of Cleveland? Will you pledge that when you are elected mayor, you will appoint a lead-safe Cleveland administrator to coordinate the various projects and departments responsible for removing lead hazards from a community? What is your plan also to deal with code enforcement of lead problems in the city of Cleveland?
First of all, you got to do something with that building and housing department down there, people. I mean, I don't know how many of y'all ever dealt with that building and housing department, and it's pretty bad. I'm just going to be simple. It's pretty bad.
Talk from the floor.
So first of all, you got to do something with the building and housing department. Second of all, you got to get more inspectors. I mean, you're in a neighborhood that has more housing than any neighborhood in the entire city of Cleveland, and yet you can see the housing stock in your community is going in a different direction simply because you don't have enough inspectors down there that are willing to come out here and to work with people in this community. I'm not talking about being over aggressive, but hey, if I got to paint my house, you got to paint your house. If your gutter falling down and I got to fix my gutter, you got to fix your gutter. Okay? Second of all, you got to start building new housing out here. I mean, the fact that, if it's true, and I have no reason to doubt it, that Ward 1 hasn't built a new house in the last 4 years. Think about it. The lead situation happened in 1970, since 1978, we stopped putting lead in there. Okay? But if you keep not building new houses, and you have this problem, this lead problem just not going to go away. So you look, I represented Ward 2. We haven't built a new house in Ward 1 and Ward 2 on the entire southeast side of the city of Cleveland in over 4 years, people. But yet on the west side, we building houses to the sky.
Hello?
So you want to deal with this problem of lead? Let's deal with it from where it starts. First of all, we got to do something with building and housing. Second of all, we got to build a new housing stock. Third of all, we got to understand the harmful effects, and I agree with my brother right here about the harmful effects of this lead as it relates to our young brothers and sisters. You know, I'm the leading advocate against trying to do something with public safety. And I've been saying to people, one of the reasons that I truly believe that we got a problem with violence is because of the lead in our houses and in our soil. Look at Freddie Gray in Baltimore. They told you that he was in a lead house from when he was born till he died in the back of that police car. This is killing our young black brothers. You look at Mr. Bowden back there, who's running for council. If we don't do something about this problem, people, we're not going to have young brothers running for mayor and running for council. I want to do something. I am going to do something.
The police killed Freddie Gray. Okay. I just want to get that straight. They killed him. Okay. Nothing to do with no lead, but they killed that man.
So, to answer your question, I'm sure I have it right. Yes, I will hire a Lead Safe Cleveland administrator. And there are two not-for-profit groups who are working in the city of Cleveland right now trying to address the issue of lead in our communities. What they have told me is that they need $99.4 million to either remove the lead from the homes in Cleveland or to do what they believe is make it safer to live in the community. 99 million, they have 49 million already. They have asked the city of Cleveland for 17.5 million. If I were mayor, I would give them the 17.5 million. That's the least we can do to make sure all the homes in the city of Cleveland are either lead free or lead safe. That's number one. Number two, as Councilman Reed said, hiring more inspectors. We don't have enough inspectors in the city of Cleveland, so we definitely need more inspectors who are going to go out and make sure that the homes are safe and that when people are cleaning up these homes, they are doing it in a safe manner for the residents of the city of Cleveland. And then finally, making sure that when they dump the lead and they clean up all this stuff, that it's removed and dumped in a way that is, I guess, approved by the health departments, by the state and the city and whatever other federal law that we have, because we want it out of our community. We don't want them to just throw it in a landfill somewhere where some child is going to go. So that's what I would do with that question. Did I miss any part of the question, Eric?
Enforcement.
Enforcement. I said hire more people. So, thank you.
What we're gonna do is we gotta fix up Kinsman some more, Zach, because Kinsman Road is still a tough street to travel down, man. So if you fixed it up, I can't imagine what it was before then. Goodness gracious, it's like driving down the moon on Kinsman. Goodness. Anyway, you know, I can imagine what it was before that, because Kinsman is the roughest road to drive down. Goodness gracious. No, I mean, I really respect Zack, man. He is a voice. I don't believe the leading voice. When it comes to public safety, you know, we have to be holistic in how we're dealing with safety. It's not just about police. It's not just about adding police. That's not going to help our community. And when you hear people say things like this, it's just baiting you based upon your fears. Adding more police in our neighborhoods is not the key. Why? Because adding more police with us means more charges, more convictions, more wrongful convictions, more overly charges, right? More deaths. So we understand that. Secondly, you know, I really, man, we gotta start mentioning Carl Stokes more and the impact that he had on our city. And I appreciate Mayor White, but when you talk about lead issues, it was during his administration that he allowed construction workers to knock down houses and to bury them underground. Lead is not just in houses. Lead is also in the soil of our city. Man, we were building, in my neighborhood, we've been building homes, and we're building, and you go down, and you're finding whole furnaces underground. You're finding whole houses underground. So what happens? Our children go outside, and you know, they play in the soil. And what do? Get your hands out your mouth, boy. They put their hands right in their mouth, right? And in our neighborhoods, in Cleveland City schools, majority of our students have IEPs, individual educational programs. How many of our young people who are in jail today, as my brother Zack said, as a result of lead? You talk about Freddie Gray, talk about Tanisha Anderson, talk about Tamir Rice. You talk about mental health issues that we are not dealing with. So that's why I want to say to you that when we talk about lead, lead is not only in the homes, it's in the pipes, it's in the soil, right? All the way around. So how do we deal with that? And they said it correctly. Number one, we have to make sure that we have more and better enforcement. But also, not just throwing money at the problem, because that doesn't fix it. You have to work with the people. No one knows the solutions better than those who are dealing with it. The best person to give advice to those who are dealing with any type of addiction are those who overcame the addiction. Can't nobody help us unless you've been through it. And once you have been through it, then you understand it in a different way. So better enforcement down in City Hall, but also making sure that you have a mayor who is an ambassador and a champion for his community. Thank you.
As I talked about with my 3 priorities, this lead paint thing, along with the infant mortality thing, is worth running for mayor in a major American city over. It was so confusing what they did to clash with the petitions that I really started deep diving on how broken City Hall is. So, you know, you guys know the story. I'm sure Miss Davis knows the story, right? Another petition initiative squashed over how do I get reelected? How do I take the credit for something that goes in a newspaper, right? That's really all it was about. But what it wasn't about was, hey, federal government told us in 2008, we're amongst the worst in the nation in giving our children lifelong brain damage. It started well before 2008, but that's when you as an elected official would have had a duty, right, to prioritize this problem with your funding. So how do we prioritize it now? Unfortunately, we're talking about the winner of this is the mayor in 2022. I mean, that's ridiculous. But we do have to hire more code enforcers. We do have to listen to like the Rebecca Moores of the world, right? People from Clash. Our attorneys are people who know. It is about planting new grass, cleaning windowsills, repainting. You don't need millions of dollars to abate the lead in every house, but we can't let our tax dollars flood out to private groups. We have to just fix the problem. So you do that by more code enforcement, hiring more City of Cleveland attorneys, right? We don't want to farm this out. We need to pay attorneys more than $47,000 a year. You can't just put a warning on a door, right? It takes work to figure out who these owners are, how to assess the fines. And the last thing would be funding the public health department and making sure, 25% of our children tested have lead paint poisoning. Well, we're not testing all our children. So this is not an easy problem. I'm not promising to fix it, but I'm promising to prioritize it.
Thank you, Ross. And many great points have already been mentioned. I would say a couple things. I want to also give a shout out to all the organizers and activists in Clash who really brought some real sense of urgency to this issue in this city. And it speaks to the importance of having a mayor who understands how to not reinvent the wheel, but make sure that these activists and residents are an extension of city government. That is essential. I was just with the Lead Safe Coalition last week. They are doing some great work on the ground to address this issue. They've already raised and committed funds nearly $44 million of the 90+ million needed to eradicate the lead paint issue crisis in the city. And as Sandra Williams commented on, as the next mayor, I commit to allocating at least $20 million of my budget to raise an additional $20 million in private capital to make sure we can close that gap to eradicate this crisis all across our community. The other thing I continue to hear from folks on this issue is that our city departments continue to fight over enforcement on this issue. We need an integrated department inside City Hall to make sure we're coordinating the right resources, organizing effectively with the Lead Safe Coalition, and getting the right support for our landlords who maybe can't afford the remediation they need to upgrade their homes. Right now in the city of Cleveland, one partner in the community had a grant program that they want to provide for the city, but the city said no, right? To support our homeowners so they can get their homes remediated in a safe fashion. So it's important for us to be open, collaborative, and really make sure we're leveraging the good work already going on the ground to meet this issue in the future and ensure that we can truly eradicate this structural issue that's plagued our community for far too long.
When we all came in, many of us were handed this leaflet, which is being distributed by Black Lives Matter Cuyahoga County, Black on Black Crime, and also Clash. And it's about a meeting at City Hall on Sunday at 7 o'clock, I believe. Yeah.
It's a sleepover.
Right. It's a sleepover. Now, this flyer points out that while people came together a few years ago to demand action on lead paint, and the city passed a lead-safe housing ordinance, there's very little action that's been taken. The city isn't testing these children as they should be. If we recognize there's a lead paint problem, you don't just talk about it, but you set up a testing program where every single child in the city of Cleveland is tested. The source of that lead could be, as Councilman Joseph, could be the soil, could be the pipes, could be the paint, but the children have to be tested, and then if they are exposed, they have to receive medical treatment. Now, why do you suppose it took so long to even pay attention to this? I'm going to offer a theory, and that is some of the biggest corporations who were concerned about lawsuits over lead paint, hear me now, about lawsuits over lead paint, they made sure that didn't get any attention at City Hall. And so what happened is they just rolled the people on the issue of lead poisoning, because the paint companies were concerned about being liable. That is the bottom line here. That's why it took so long to even get a minimal attention. So, as far as the housing that is covered with lead paint or with lead pipes, it may be cheaper to tear them down and remove, as Sandra Williams said, remove the debris and build low and moderate income homes so that our children aren't exposed to the lead in the homes in which they live. And that's an individual decision that has to be made. But I'm ready to confront this. Thank you.
We have one more candidate we're going to allow to answer that question.
Thank you.
Cleveland has a history of mismanagement of lead hazards that poison Cleveland's children. How would you plan on dealing with the lead problem in the city of Cleveland? Will you pledge that when you are elected mayor, will you appoint a lead-safe administrator to coordinate the various departments which will be responsible for removing lead hazards from the community? The last part of that question is, what is your plan to deal with code enforcement regarding lead?
Thank you. And first off, let me apologize for my tardiness. I was at the Craftsmanship Award that's put on by the Cleveland Building Trades and the Construction Employers Association. I was speaking, so I couldn't really step out early. So please accept my apology. And I seem to have come in on an extremely important question that I want to deal with. We have a shameful history of lead poisoning in the city of Cleveland. And many actors have not taken the steps that they should have taken when they should have taken them throughout history. But most recently, the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition has formed, and they are taking steps forward. I just spoke with this group yesterday morning and checked on the progress of where we are. Now, I wish we were further ahead, but right now we are not where we need to be with our inspections. We're not where we need to be with training the workforce that can actually do the inspections and making sure that building and housing is following up on the in-home inspections. But there is a commitment to move forward. Now, what we need to do in terms of the parts B and C of how we move forward is the infrastructure through the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition is there. The ordinance that the city of Cleveland passed to make sure that rental units were inspected in a systematic way is a good ordinance, but what's going to really determine the success or failure is how well it is executed, how well it is implemented. Right now we're behind. When I'm mayor, we will not be behind. When I'm as council president, we are going to allocate additional funding to the Let's Save Cleveland Coalition out of the ARPA funds. This has to be a critical moment for the city of Cleveland. We have an opportunity right now to right a wrong that has historically been with us. And right now, I'm not waiting until I'm mayor to take the steps forward. I'm going to take the steps as council president to make sure that funding goes where it needs to go. But again, we have to look at what is currently in place. We have been woefully inadequate, shamefully inadequate. We have not taken this problem on when we should have, could have, and knew about it. But that's the past. Now we need to look at the future. The future is the Let's Save Cleveland Coalition in terms of its system of training workforce to make sure that we can do the inspections, execute the inspections for our rental properties. Thank you.
Okay, this is a very simple question that all of you can probably answer in less than 2 minutes. Do you plan to continue to budget monies for emergency rental assistance or rental deposit to prevent homelessness in single parents in the city of Cleveland?
Look at how many people in the city right now are on edge that they're going to lose some rental benefits and could end up being evicted. How many of you in this room have ever been subject to an eviction? I know my brother has. Now, there is nothing more disorienting and humiliating, yet tens of thousands of our fellow citizens are facing that right now. I'm glad to see that President Biden has taken some steps to try to keep a moratorium going on that. But there'll be a point at which the moratorium ends. And the city must be prepared to provide a rent subsidy so people can have a roof over there. There's nothing more important than having a roof over there. It's a basic human need. And so all the programs that are out there, we need to consolidate. You know, one of the things that I'm able to do, you know, I served in the United States Congress for 16 years. I served with Louis Stokes, Stephanie Tubb Jones, and Marcia Fudge. I built relationships with all the individuals who are either potential chairs of committees or, and I know my friend Councilman Reed has as well with Maxine Waters, that we, you know, I have relationships on both sides of the aisle, and I can go to people who look for help for Cleveland, for all of these housing and community development needs. Because I know the people, and I've known President Biden since 1972, when we both ran for Congress at the same time. And you know how important those relationships are. So it's like having an extra congressperson there. So I can say that the programs that we have right now are not enough. It's a good thing President Biden extended them. As mayor, I'll see to it that we'll try to minimize any kind of evictions. We don't want anybody out on the street. We do not want that to happen. And we certainly want to make sure that we have a city that has compassion for the homeless. I've been there. I understand, not in the way that some people do are living out on the street, but we've got to provide benefits for homeless people, health, mental health, food, and health care. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And listen, this is personal for me too. I may have not been evicted, but I remember seeing a sign on my door, and thank God I had a praying grandma who let me and my mama back in that house, right? Because without that, I could have been homeless. And you know, I think the city of Cleveland has done some good steps in the right direction on this issue. I want to, you know, it's great to see that President Biden has extended the eviction moratorium. Secondly, I want to applaud Council President Kelley for the work they did with the right to counsel legislation. We should expand the criteria for that program to keep more people in their home. We also got to make sure we pass pay to stay legislation in the city of Cleveland, as well as source of income protections in the city of Cleveland, so we can make sure everybody in the city, regardless if you're coming back from prison, regardless if you're getting a Section 8 voucher, that you can have a place in this city and live with dignity. The other thing I want to say is we were just on the homeless forum yesterday, and one of the things I uncovered was in the city of Cleveland, there are some programs that require you to be chronically homeless for a year before you get access to a housing voucher. That makes no damn sense to me, right? But in cities like Houston, they say regardless of how long you've been homeless, here's a direct voucher for a house with all the right social and emotional support you need to get back on your feet. That's the kind of direct voucher program we need in Cleveland to address this issue on a long-term basis. Thank you.
Yeah. To answer the question, yes, we are going to continue to fund rent security, and we want to put in place rent caps, right, for those being priced out of their properties in certain parts of town. As Justin said, we do need to do pay to stay safety legislation. Further than that, we need to build some public housing. We need to build way more affordable housing. And if our kids in these neighborhoods can turn these vacant properties around, create meaning, create money in their pockets, right? Spending power, and then a background skill need. So it is our kids and young adults who are going to build affordable housing. But to answer the question, of course, we are going to budget for rent safety. One big plank, or one big philosophy for me, right, is I want to recast the budget as a moral document. So, and I want to create a public ledger so that we see where every penny goes. So I don't want just whoever wins, right? We don't just want to say we're going to add more funding in this. We want you guys to be able to click on a button or no. Well, yeah, we really added funding to this. So keeping track of our tax dollars, account for every penny, and also with the ARPA funds. Thank you.
And thank you. We're going to win this election. We're going to win this. We're going to win it. You know, the first thing I want to say is, in order to understand homelessness, we have to first recognize that when you see a homeless person or an unsheltered person, we automatically think that it's their fault. Maybe they were doing too much of this and doing too much of that. But in reality, when my mom and my siblings were homeless, we just didn't have no place to go. And for those who understand the process, you know that if you go to a homeless shelter through transitional housing, they will ultimately put you somewhere. You know, the first thing that we have to do is that we're blessed to have an amazing housing court judge by the name of Judge Monet Scott, who's doing a phenomenal job. So if we want to deal with this issue, you know, as a city, we have not worked with her enough because she understands the issue of, and the lack of, the moratorium piece, where luckily President Biden took over, but she knows the issues better than anybody because there are those who are coming right in front of her. So we have to work with those who we have, and that's the type of mayor that you need. You need a mayor that's willing to collaborate with all people. Everybody, in Cleveland, there's all these different institutions. CMHA over here, the counties over here, the cities over here, but we all dealing with the same issues. I can remember the other day, the city said, I had a sewer backed up. And I said, I need the city to come out. The councilman, I'm saying, I need the city to come out. They said, well, that's not our sidewalk. That belongs to Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. I said, this is ridiculous. So you mean to tell me you won't come out and help? It's all the same residents. So what I'm saying to you and to myself is that we have to work with those who have the answers. Without a doubt, to answer your question, we will deal with it not only locally, not only statewide, but also nationally. But we have to work with the people who are doing the great work. And your own Ward 1 Housing Court judge, she had the answers. We just got to be willing to listen. Thank you.
To answer your question, yes, we will have a safety net program for people who need emergency assistance. And unfortunately, this problem exists in our community, and it shouldn't. We have a lot of resources in our community. Nobody should be homeless. And I'll tell you a story about one family that I helped. There was a young man, his girlfriend, and their 2 children, Pops and Tanya, and their 2 children. They had been living in their car for over a year, even in the wintertime. And when I found out about it, I was like, I cannot believe they've been sleeping in their car in the winter. So I called the county, and Justin is right. They weren't homeless because a car is a roof over their head, and they could not get any assistance. So I called my friend up who has some rental property, and I said, Robin, can you please let them stay on one of your properties? I'll even put the down payment down. And if you can just reduce their rent, because they work at the car wash up there in Warrensville. You know, they make $3 an hour, $3 and some change. They can't afford rent. So Robin did that. The only way the county would help that family is if they went into the homeless shelter. And then they had to separate. So the man had to go here, leave his wife and 2 children over here. And they were like, because we heard people get killed or hurt in the homeless shelter, so we refused to do so. They would rather sleep in their car than to go into a homeless shelter. So that's another issue we have to address anyway, the safety in the homeless shelter. The county would not give any services to them because they were not homeless. So I took stuff out of my house. A county worker took stuff out of his house. Robin let them move in her house, which they're still there. But these 2 little girls had to go to school every day. So they were going to school from their car. Imagine trying to learn when you haven't had breakfast, you don't even have a bed, and you're staying in a 1980s Cadillac. That's what our families are dealing with on a regular basis. And I know my time is up, but I know another issue we must address is this issue of people losing their homes because they cannot afford their property taxes. Ms. Freeman lost her home because her taxes were behind. It was sold. And the issue if when you're behind on your water and sewer bill, they can sell your home from you. We have to stop that. You should not be losing your homes for those reasons.
To answer your question, yes. But let me tell you something. As you know, I was the minority affairs. I was the intergovernmental affairs officer for the San Francisco Housing Authority. Okay. So I tell you that because experience matters, people. And we hear people say that we got too much experience because they don't have it. All right. So let me tell you something. Right now, people. Right now. There's 46, thanks to Biden and the Democrats, there's $46 million to stop people from being evicted. $46 billion. Of that $46 billion, only $3 billion has been spent so far. So the money's there. So if you had a mayor who understands this problem in the city of Cleveland, the mayor would set up and work with our housing court judge over here, and let's figure a way to get the money into the hands of those landlords so they could stop these people from being evicted. I learned from my mentor, Willie Brown, that money is never the problem. It is the will for people to do the right thing. As we sit here right now, there is $43 billion in place right now to stop people from being evicted and out on the street. But you got a mayor with the Kelley Jackson administration down there that is not spending the money in our wards and in our community to stop people from being evicted. $43 billion is there. So when you're looking at somebody with the experience that I have, I could pick up the phone right now and call Governor DeWine and say, Governor DeWine, let's figure out something, because I've got that relationship with him. Senator Portman, Senator Brown, who I was his council person for 8 years. Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, who was the secretary. This is the relationship that I have with these individuals on both sides of the aisle, both on the Republican and on the Democratic side. That's the type of mayor you need down in City Hall.
Thank you. The simple answer to the question is yes. And as you're evaluating candidates for mayor, it's real easy to say you're for something or you're against something and talk about the stuff that you would do. But here, we have a really good opportunity to look at who's actually done things for people facing eviction. We are all familiar with the idea that a criminal defendant has a right to counsel. But we've never had that right for people who are losing their home until I introduced legislation and passed legislation ensuring right to counsel for low-income individuals with children in those households. Children who would be displaced from the house, have to move schools. It would disrupt the entire family. The breadwinner would have a difficult time with their job place and everything else. This was critical legislation. It was put forward, and it wasn't a program. It's not something that we put forth and put some money towards a program. When we declared a right, we declared something that was going to outlast me as council president, me as mayor, and it's going to be for generations of mayors and generations of council presidents. And it's going to make a lasting impact. Eviction causes poverty. Eviction causes children to have to hop from schools. Eviction causes adults to have to couch surf while they're trying to get their lives stabilized again. Stopping eviction, slowing eviction, putting a plan together was essential. But not only did we declare this right, we put money behind it. We put money behind through legal aid, through United Way, to make sure that people who showed up with kids in their house, in the courtroom, we talk about systems being discriminatory, systems that lock people out. This is one of them. 90% of landlords had attorneys, 5% of tenants did. We need to level that playing field, and that's what we did. So we put money for attorneys, but we also put $5 million before these ARPA funds to CHN Housing Partners. This is a critical issue. Thank you.
All right, we're coming into the last question. People are concerned about the emergency or complain about the low response rate of 911 calls. What are your plans to deal with that issue, and what are your views on the consent decree?
Thank you. So let's start with the issue of 911 response. When you call 911, you deserve an immediate response. Nobody is calling 911 because they're in a good place. People are calling 911 because they're in a state of crisis. Their call should not be diverted. They should not have 12 rings before it answers. There's a few things that need to happen immediately. We need to look at how those calls are routed and the technology of how it comes in. We should not have a situation where the dispatcher has to ask where you're calling from. Is it police, fire, EMS that needs to happen? The call should be immediately routed, and the training, the technology have to be forefront, the absolute pillars of making that a success. We also have to have our staff trained and properly able to handle each call. And right now we are not in a place where we are responding to 911 calls in the time that we can, because if you look at when people complain about police, fire, EMS not showing up in a timely manner, and we get those calls as council people, we all, Councilman Jones gets the same, we track back from the number that it was called from. And what we found is that from the time that the car that the first responder gets the dispatch, it's a relatively short period of time. But it's that time between the call and the dispatch which is problematic. The consent decree. We have made progress. Crisis intervention training, de-escalation training, body cams. We have made progress. Are we there? Are we done? Absolutely not. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. But we will get there. This is the consent decree. We entered into the consent decree out of a tragedy. Out of the 137 shots that were fired in East Cleveland. And when the DOJ came in, it did a thorough review. We have a plan laid out of how to get better, and we are getting better. but we're not done yet, and we will be done. We will get there. We will make sure that every element of the
Well, when we talk about when we just heard that, what they had done, well, let's talk about what they've done, because the Kelley Jackson administration has been down there for 8 years, and this problem of 911 has been a problem, people. So you want to go 4 more years of the Kelley Jackson administration talking about the same old problem? It's been the same old problem, people. For the last 8 years, it has been a problem with 911. So when someone says, tell me what I've done, well, for 8 years, this problem with 911 when you call has been the same old problem, and you've been down there, we're dealing with the same old problem, and now suddenly you say, well, if you elect me, we're going to change the same old problem. All right, when we talk about the consent decree, let's talk about the consent decree. We know why the consent decree was put in place. And we know that we still are not where we need to be. And all you got to do is look at the protest on May 30th down at the Justice Center. That's all you got to do. The George Floyd protest, and we're down there protesting after that. And I know many of us were down there. And when we were down there, we were exercising our constitutional right. Because a man had been killed right before our very eyes. And we're there, and we're protesting, and we hollering at the police. Well, I wasn't hollering, but a bunch of people was hollering at the police, all right? And they were, and they were doing this, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, tear gas comes flying our way. All of a sudden, here come the rubber bullets flying our way. Now, if you under this consent decree, and you know why they suddenly shooting tear gas at us.
They ain't got no respect.
So why are they suddenly shooting these rubber bullets at us? And why are they suddenly throwing everything at us? Because they don't respect that consent decree, but when I'm mayor, they're going to respect that consent decree.
They love that! Black in the house! Black in the house! You said something right there. You got 50 points for me, Zack.
That was good, Councilman. That was good. So the consent decree, I believe, as has been said already, we have a lot more work to do when it comes to the consent decree. We have a lot more work to do to make sure that the community and the police are getting along the way we should be. I was actually one of the sponsors of a plan that we have at the state level, the Community and Police Collaborative, where we have standards in place right now that Cleveland should also be following, but our city police department is not following anything that's in the state, but it's currently in place right now. So we do have a lot more work to do, and I pledge, like the rest of them, to make it better. Secondly, 911 calls. We need more staff. I was with the 911 callers a couple weeks ago. They don't have the staff. They don't have the proper training. And then we have to get back to something one of them said up here earlier. You might have a bus all the way on the south side of town, and that same bus might have to go all the way over to St. Clair and Superior because they don't have enough vehicles, they don't have enough people on the street, so you may not get service. So we need more staff, we need them properly trained, we need them routed, and we need to make sure we have the vehicles in place and the people in place to be able to go out and handle that call in an immediate fashion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to wait for Zack to come back because I want to say something to him.
Don't do it.
Oh, I gotta get him. I want to wait. Hurry up, Zack. I gotta talk to you, brother. So I'll start with the consent decree. The question was consent decree and 911. So let me start with 911. So when it comes to this, we have to understand that even though these are workers taking 911 calls, they're still human beings. And there's a lot of trauma that people are dealing with in taking these calls. They have no training, their training is bad, the pay is bad, and as a result of it, even as a city, we have to begin to treat our city workers a lot better than we treat them. So another issue that we have is EMS and fire. You call 911, man, 3 different departments show up. So we have to bring those together so that we can truly begin to save money. Same thing I want to say about the experience issue. I'm really trying to be patient. The experience issue. What I say about it is that I know what, here you go. Come on, Zack. I got to talk to you about this, brother. I know a lot of people that's been doing a lot of things for a long time, but that don't mean that they've been doing it right. And even though I respect my guy, Zack been down there for 17 years. You've been down there. So it's not just you pointing at President Kelley. You have been down there for 17 years. 911 didn't just become an issue. The issue about bad policing did not just become an issue. It's more than just talking. What action are you putting there? Now, I can say one thing that I love about Zack is that he is present and he has been present in fighting. But fighting is not enough unless there's some success that comes from it. We have to be willing to collaborate and work together. And if we don't do that, we won't be successful. The consent decree has not been successful. I mean, I asked the question at the table on the safety committee, has the consent decree, if we were to stop the consent decree today, would we achieve our goals? They say we're not even close to having achieved our goals in regards to the consent decree. You're talking about East Cleveland, 137 shots, Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams, right? And not only do we have an issue with policing in Cleveland, but we have so many different police districts. We are one of the most over-policed areas in the entire country. You got CMHA police, CMSD police, RTA police, Case Western Reserve police, Cleveland State Police, CPD, right? And you can go on and on and on and
Cleveland
on.
Clinic Police.
Right, Cleveland Clinic Police, University Hospital Police, Shaker Police. I mean, come on. So the police is not the issue. It is the cultural competency that we need to step up. It is the training that we need to step up. And the fact is that experience alone is not sufficient. Look at where we are as a city. Experience is not sufficient. You could be doing the same thing for a long time. The problem is that we have to change the direction that we are going in. Experience is not enough. Success is. Thank you.
911. We got to change everything completely. And other cities are doing it. And we're behind the times, right? Communication is everything. 67% of calls do not need an armed response, right? But so you need more options than just police, fire, EMS. We need to hire more and work with dispatch, right, on more substance abuse people, social workers, code enforcers, mental health specialists. Okay? So that's the 911 part of it, emergency communications. Many cities are upgrading with the times on this. I personally am for making the consent decree permanent. Okay? I signed the petition. I told some of these guys where to petition at. I was sad when I was worried maybe they weren't going to get to 15,000. The problem with this city is that the people are not in charge of this city. It's been happened time and again, whether it's the Q deal, mini stations, lead paint poisoning, all these issues we know, right? And I mean we, whether it's west side, east side, south side, all these issues we know. But we don't really get listened to at City Hall, whether it's a specific issue with signatures or public comment. So personally, I think that the consent decree needs to be permanent. Doesn't matter whether you go 2 years without an excessive force issue, 10 years, 15 years. That we need to get to where police just naturally are accountable, and we're not there yet. We are getting there, but it needs to be permanent, and we need a big culture change.
You know, I know we're going to wrap up here soon, and I think every question tonight speaks to why this election is so important. This election is about urgency, and that's why I'm in this race. Because we have a culture of complacency that's a cancer on leadership in this city. Now let's talk about 911. This is personal for me. I had to bury my cousin Chris, who was like a brother to me. He was choked to death by his partner who suffered a mental health episode, and it took EMS over 40 minutes to show up. 40 minutes. Now, I say that to not to hate on EMS, but to tell you this, that the way that we're policing our communities is broken, right? So here's what I want to do. Number one, I want to add a fourth option, 911, around mental health, right? So we can triage the right response for the right call. I want to build on what we're doing right now because of the consent decree and have a co-responder model of policing in all of our 5 police districts, that we embed social workers and mental health professionals to join our first responders for nonviolent 911 calls.
Right.
And in 2016, we did a pilot program on this project, and we found in the 2nd district, nearly 37% of the 911 calls did not merit a response from 2 armed cops.
Right, exactly.
So if we could have diverted that 37% call response time, it would have allowed us to increase the quality of response time for these basic quality of life calls all across the city. And lastly, it's so important that we back this ballot initiative to change the culture of our police department. And I want to say this on the record. Don't be hoodwinked or bamboozled. This is not taking power from the mayor or city council. If you read the legislation, the mayor and council have the authority to appoint the members of this commission. And the members must reflect law enforcement, victims of police brutality, and residents. This is about sharing political power with the people. That's how you build trust. And the prerequisite to safety in the city is trust with the people. So as your mayor, I'm willing to share my political power with you to bring real justice and real accountability that you deserve as your next mayor. That's what I'm about.
Glad to join with my fellow candidates this evening. And I think that law enforcement, policing is the top issue in Cleveland in this election. There's no question about it. I think it's important to reflect on why there was a consent decree to begin with. Charter of the City of Cleveland, which I'm very familiar with, having been mayor, I understood then and understand now that according to the charter, the mayor of Cleveland is the chief conservator of the peace. The mayor, that's accountability. That's what we're electing here. We're electing not just management, we're electing accountability. And the absolute sad truth of this situation in Cleveland is that City Hall was not accountable. They went to Washington and said, run our police department. Come on. If you can't run the police department yourself, then get out of the way for someone who's ready to do that. And that's what happened. Except we went to Washington and said, tell us how to run a police department. The mayor's supposed to do that. It's the mayor's responsibility. Now, I had my tangle with the police department when I was mayor. They wouldn't want to work in the public housing areas. We had a strike over that. I took a firm stand. I have no trouble taking a stand. I'm ready to be the person who's the chief conservator of the peace, working with the people. I think that civilian interaction is critical because it's your police department. You're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to go for public safety. But at the same time, I'm wary, brother, of this charter amendment because I'm running for mayor specifically because I want to be in a position of being able to direct the police department in the best interest of the people of the city of Cleveland, to make it racially sensitive, make it constitutionally aware, to make it a department that is accountable to you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, coming to the close on the question part of this forum, we're going to allow the candidates to have their closing remarks before we leave.
A minute.
1 minute or 2?
Did you say 1 or 2?
2. I was trying to trick 2.
Oh, you were giving me 1. Let me clarify that. We got 1 or 2.
Let's verify.
I just want to say to my good friend, Councilman Jones, that you raised a good point about you have the Metropolitan Police, you have the Transit Police, you have the School Police, you have University Police. Which of them are we going to call to get a handle on the dirt bikes and the ATMs, the ATVs, ATMs another subject, thank you, that are running up and down from east to west, shooting guns in the air, terrorizing people? See, I mean, there's really a question here about whether or not the quality and quantity of law enforcement is sufficient in this city, and that's something that I'm very concerned about, obviously, and have made an issue in this campaign. But just having more police doesn't solve the issue, and I've made that very clear. We need to reorient the approach that we take to make peace, civic peace, the central organizing proposition of our community, where law enforcement is one aspect that supports that. But law enforcement in and of itself cannot create peace in a community. We understand that. We need restorative justice so that the brothers and sisters who have gone astray of the law, once they serve their time and paid their debt to society, they don't have to keep paying that debt again and again and again. You pay your debt once, you paid. You need a job. You need to make sure there's a roof over your head. Restorative justice is also part of peace in the community. Healthcare is part of peace in the community. We need to make sure our children have access to healthcare. We need to make sure that this lead paint issue is resolved, that the children will get tested, that the houses that are lead infected are going to be either torn down or restored. We need to make sure that housing is part of that civic peace proposition. See, I view the world as one, as being interconnected and interdependent. We're all one. We're one Cleveland, one community. I'll use the power of that unity to transform our city. Thank you very much.
Trying to take my minute then. It has certainly been an honor and a joy to be in community with you all this evening. And you know, there's been this quote that's been stuck with me throughout this campaign. It comes from my frat brother, Otis Moss III. He has this quote. He says that George Wallace had the position, but Rosa Parks had the power. And I want to tell you that because in this election, it's not about any of us on this stage. It's about all of you all here. You have the power. This election is about you. And in this election, we can do a whole lot to make sure we turn the page to have prosperous, safe, and economically viable neighborhoods. We can turn the page and make sure we have a modern and transparent city hall that works for our children, that works for our seniors. And we can turn the page to ensure that every child inside of Cmsd has the skills they need to achieve their God-given potential. Now, my name might have never been on the ballot. This is my first time running for office. But I had the lived experience as a kid who grew up on 121st and Dove, the son of a social worker, a cop, and a firefighter, but also the professional and executive experience to be your mayor, having advised big city mayors all across this country, having worked for a $1.2 billion business, managing that business, but also fighting for public transit as a board member at RTA, working to advance new solutions for criminal justice reform as a co-founder of an organization called Hack Cleveland. I'm not new to these issues. I may be new to politics as an elected official, but I'm not new to these issues. So in this election, I ask you to join me to turn the page and build a new political movement to change this city for the next generation. Because I believe I'm part of that Joshua generation. And I owe a debt of service to you to make sure we get to that promised land. Thank you so much.
Does that work? Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm Ross Debello. I haven't been to this site, right, but I've been to Ward 1. I've been to Councilman Jones' events many times over the past 12 years. I know you don't know my name, right? Please check out my website, rossdebello.com. Hopefully you guys felt I answered everything genuinely and specifically. I'm running because This doesn't feel any different from 4 years ago, than 8 years ago, than 12 years ago. You know, we've got politicians up here, and we're all well-intentioned, but we need to change City Hall, right? We're not getting the value of our tax dollars. We're not in charge. Criminal justice has not been reformed, right? Felony case after felony case after felony case, lead paint poisoning after lead paint poisoning, infant mortality. This is Cleveland, right? But the mayor and council president, they get reelected quite easily every time. Every time. If we want change, we need to change City Hall, right? I want to put in term limits. I want to put in campaign finance so we can save our taxes from flooding out to the suburbs, right? We should get the benefits of what happens downtown. We should get those benefits. They should be reinvested. We have to invest in our kids and put our kids to work in every neighborhood. So, thank you. If we want a different result, we need an absolutely different system and City Hall. We have so many systemic problems because our system is broken. So please check out my website at rossdebello.com. If you like what you see, please tell a neighbor. But please, even if you don't vote for me, take this election as serious as we've ever taken one and make one of the 7 of us earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I was that young person that you raised. Growing up on the Huff neighborhood, growing up on Superior and St. Clair, going to Case Elementary, MLK Middle School, MLK High School. It was Otis Moss III's father that wrote my recommendation letter, Dr. Reverend Otis Moss Jr. I got denied to Morehouse College, but Reverend Moss wrote my recommendation letter, and that's how I got in. It was Reverend Cavness. I went over to Greater Abyssinia in the basement. They raised money for me. Colin Post, Connie Harper. She said, Bashir, we're gonna give you a scholarship. Mike Nelson over at 100 Black Men said, Bashir, you can go, but you make sure you come back. I was that young person that you raised in this city, that George Forbes and Lou Stokes and Stephanie Tubbs Jones raised as their nephew. And you said, Bashir, you can go to Morehouse, but you better make sure you come back. I know it's hot Atlanta, but you better make sure you come back to Cleveland and bring the service back. And that's what I did. And I fought. And you said, Bashir, you want to make a change? Don't just complain, pick up that clipboard. And I did. And I got those signatures. And I failed at first. And then I ran again, and then I won. And then I changed my community over in the Huff neighborhood, bringing close to $500 million of investment into our neighborhood. I mean, enhancing the cultural art in our neighborhood. And guess what? Don't choose people who are disconnected. Those are not just dirt bike riders. Those are your nephews. Those are your sons. Those are your grandchildren. And who has the power to reach them? I do. I sat down with them the other day, and they said, Bashir, we've never shot any guns in the air. That's the media. They never shot guns in the air. But that's what we're pushing. That's what we're promoting, because we want to build on people's fear. The question you have to ask yourself is, you want a leader who can reach the people. Not just reaching them. I spent the night on 79th and Superior because there was violence taking place in my community for 3 nights straight. That's not something new. I didn't just start speaking in the schools. I didn't just start doing this work. I've been doing this work, and I ask you to choose me as your next mayor. Thank you.
I want to thank you for coming out tonight to listen to all of us. It really means a lot to me that you would spend 2.5 hours talking to us about this city. People often say to me, Sandra, why are you trying to become mayor when you're already a state senator? They think that's a lower level, and it's not to me, because this city means a lot to me. The people of the city mean a lot to me. I want the city of Cleveland to become the land of opportunity where everybody thrives. And I've been down in Columbus for the last 15 years. And with the hundreds of millions of dollars that I've brought back and all the policy changes that the mayor has asked me to put in place, I've done that. But I don't see that benefiting the people in the city of Cleveland. We are at a critical point right now. And what we're talking about today is not just about us. It's about our children, it's about our grandchildren, and the future people who are going to be living in the city of Cleveland. I believe you need a leader that's going to focus on education, on economic development, and public safety. And beyond that, customer service, because I can tell you, people are not treated fairly in this city. Not just the workers, but the citizens of this city. I want this city to be better. And I'm willing to spend all of my time doing what I need to do, working with city council members and every other person who has an interest in building Cleveland back to make this city better. That's why my mother and father moved here, because they saw opportunity. But now our children don't see opportunity. We can give them that opportunity. My name is Sandra Williams, williamsforcleveland.com, and I'm respectfully asking for your vote starting next week. We only have 30-some days to go, and the vote is on September 14th. So thank you all very much for having me.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for this fantastic opportunity to come back to the southeast side of the city of Cleveland and talk to you tonight and ask you to please vote for me on election day. You know, my brother Bashir is not the only one who was taken underneath their wing and was able to be put in the position I'm in today. You know, I was raised by a single mom on 139th and Kinsman. And I can remember when we had 33 wards, and John Barnes was a council person out here, and William Bill Franklin was over in Ward 10. And I remember when Judge White was here fighting for you. See, these are the people who taught me what it means to live here on the southeast side of the city of Cleveland. How important the southeast side of the city of Cleveland is to this entire city. So when you talk about experience, no one on this stage has the experience I have. Someone tells you that, well, his experience is not just enough. Think about, I'm not just talking about experience, I'm talking about experience with achievements. And you know my achievements. You've been watching me for a long time, people. For an awful long time. Let's take Luke Easter Park, for instance. It's the largest urban park in the entire state of Ohio. When I got there, it wasn't what it is today. Our young kids who play football up there, you know where they were changing their clothes? They were changing their clothes in cars and out in the grass. I gave them $25,000 to build that new changing facility you see out there. When our senior citizens were walking around that track, and you know what that track looked like, I gave them thousands of dollars to put the new track out there for Luke Easter Park. When our young boys and young girls didn't have a softball field to play on, I worked with the unions to give them a softball field. See, this is experience with a commitment and achievement. It's not just me talking about experience. Then last but not least, when they said that we couldn't put 20,000 people into that park and have a brand new and have a concert out there with 20,000 people, I had faith in you. I had faith in you that if we put 20,000 people in that park, you would come and see the Temptations free. You come see the OJs free. I did it because of you. I believe in you. I'm asking you to believe in me and vote for me on election day.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I believe this is the most important election of our lifetimes from a municipal perspective, and I think we all need to take this very seriously. Every candidate will talk about change. Everybody will tell you about things that they're for or against. But we need to look at people's records. We need to look at people's record of accomplishment. If we think about some of the big, bold, aggressive initiatives that have come out of the city of Cleveland, I would argue they come from the council and that come under the time when I've been council president. Right to council, racism and public health crisis, Lead Save Cleveland, First Year Cleveland. These are all things that were initiated while I was council president. And as the mayor of the city, I will now have the privilege of executing, of making sure that the money the council gives me gets spent the way, according to the values that I'm going to bring to the office. For those of you who do not know me, I look forward to getting to know you. But you can look, when you look at a candidate, you have to make a decision of who can you trust to be the next mayor, whose experience, whose time in city council has served you. And I'm very proud to have Councilman Kevin Conwell stand up for me. Proud to have Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell stand up for me. People of great integrity, people that serve the community. And I'm extremely proud to have Mayor Frank Jackson stand up for me. Whether you agree with everything the mayor says or not, I would challenge anybody in this room. Is there anybody that questions his integrity, his love of Cleveland, and his desire to see the city move forward? And he's endorsed me for those reasons. And for those reasons, I proudly accept those endorsements. And I'm looking forward to serving you as your mayor. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. September 14th is the election. Early vote starts Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.